Greetings and good day to all of our participants. I am Professor Roberto Manaois and I am representing the San Beda University. This paper is entitled The Weisbord Model and Organizational Culture Assessment Instrument as Tools for Organizational Resilience Assessment, the Pre- and Post-Pandemic Experience. This case analysis presents the pre- and post-pandemic assessment results of Weisbord's 6-box model organizational diagnosis for Diagnostica. It is a company operating in the in vitro diagnostics industry in the Philippines. The purpose of the study was to determine the alignment of the firm, the fit between organization and environment, and the individual and the organization as proposed by Weisbord by comparing the pre- and post-pandemic means of the 7 boxes of the Organizational Diagnosis Questionnaire as developed by Bob Preziosi in 1980. The study also assessed the impact of the lockdown on the firm's organizational culture using the Organizational Culture Assessment Instrument by Quinn and Cameron that was published in 1999, and this assessed how Diagnostica evolved in response to the shocks of disruptive changes that challenged the company's resilience and sustainability. And another output of this paper is a meta-analysis of resilience that was done by comparing the post-pandemic results of the ODQ assessment with Diagnostica's Organizational Culture Assessment Instrument means before the pandemic. The analysis was done with a complementary qualitative data from the firm. Furthermore, both assessments from Preziosi's ODQ and Quinn's and Cameron's OCI were tiered between supervisorial and non-supervisorial functions. This is the instrument that was used, the ODQ questionnaire by Bob Preziosi, and you can see that there are about 35 questions and are Likert scaled from 1 to 7, with 1 indicating that the respondents strongly agree and 7 that the respondents disagree strongly. These are the 6 boxes coming from Weisbord, but Preziosi increased it to 7 by including attitude for change. But you will see that in the middle there is leadership, and it is intended to align all of the components in the whole framework to ensure strategic organizational alignment. And this is the output coming from Organizational Culture Assessment Instrument that categorizes the organization into 4 groups. The clan human relations, that is primarily focused on being oriented towards collaborative and human relations concepts. And the value drivers of this culture is focused on commitment, communication, and development. The adhocracy or ad hoc culture is oriented towards being creative, and it's an open systems kind of a culture, and its value drivers are more focused on innovation, transformation, and agility, whereas the hierarchy is more on controlling orientation, and the value drivers are focused on efficiency, timeliness, and consistency. And finally, we have the market culture, which is oriented towards being competitive in the market, and the value drivers are market share, goal achievement, and profitability. Now let's look at the context of the paper. This picture shows how the company is strategically based. In Luzon, there are 3 strategic bases, and its main headquarters is based in Metro Manila. There are about 4 bases that are located in the Visayas, and there are about 3 strategic locations that are based in Mindanao. You will notice that the dispersion of the bases are in response to the archipelagic nature of the Philippines as a country, so that there will be a faster response time to its customers. The stringent lockdown that happened in March 2020 spawned a struggle in the major island of Luzon, resulting in paralysis of the key business centers in Metro Manila. And these sequential disruptions systematically engaged the firm in virtual and defensive strategies. The company eventually shifted to work from home because of the lockdown. And the lockdown resulted also in a drastic inbound and outbound logistical constraints, and it stymied all face-to-face operations. Furthermore, the sudden and sharp decline in patients going to hospitals, which is the primary market of the firm, resulted in a plummeting down of revenues and net income. And because of this, it has become imperative that the impact of this disruptive phenomena be evaluated. And so the statement of the problem goes, was there a significant difference on Diagnostica's organizational culture and difference on organizational alignment between the pre- and post-pandemic periods? Our hypothesis, therefore, would be hypothesis number 1, there is no significant difference in the organizational alignment of Diagnostica between the pre- and post-pandemic periods. And hypothesis number 2 is that there is no significant difference in the organizational culture of Diagnostica between the pre- and post-pandemic periods. This is how the paper was designed. A self-assessment was conducted using the structured ODQ questionnaire by Preciosi to diagnose the fit between organization and environment and between the individual in the organization. The questionnaire was run through Google Docs, and all employees nationwide were instructed to answer the questions online. There were about 111 respondents to this questionnaire. And as a target of the tool is the whole organization to see how it corporately responded to both the external and internal critical success factors. It involved all departments in the self-assessment. 1 week later, another set of questionnaire was sent out to the employees of Diagnostica using the structured organizational culture assessment by Cameron and Quinn. And this questionnaire was sent out at the time the government declared another lockdown in the National Capital Region and its neighboring bubble areas. The questions were answered anonymously and were sent back to the Human Resource Department, who processed the data analysis. As a result, 2 sets of data were obtained, one from the ODQ and the other one from the OKI questionnaire. And these data were compared to the previous ODQ and OKI scores that were done in 2019. And in light of the difference in the frequency of communication during pandemic, where there were more time dedicated discussing with the management committee via Zoom compared to the frequency of general meetings with all employees, the post-pandemic assessment was split into 2 perspectives, supervisorial and non-supervisorial. Now let's look at the ODQ and OKI data analysis. This is a descriptive data of the respondents. Primarily, most of the employees are young, in that about 89% of the respondents were in the ages of 21 to 40, and there were more males than females. There were about 73% non-supervisory respondents, and 27% are in the supervisory position. This is the mean comparison of organizational diagnosis questionnaire before and after pandemic. With the ODQ questionnaire, there were about 7 boxes that we need to look at, from purpose, structure, leadership, relationships, rewards, helpful mechanisms, and attitude towards change. And comparing the mean between 2021 and 2019, we can immediately see that there are lower means in 2021 at post-pandemic compared to the pre-pandemic, with the exception of rewards, which remain to be the same. In the interpretation of the ODQ, the closer the mean to 1, the better it is. And this is a good finding because it means that during the pandemic, there was even an improvement in terms of alignment of the organization. But when we look at the p-values, all of the values are greater than 0.05 alpha. And that means that all of the means on the ODQ for organizational diagnosis indicate that there is no significant difference between the 2019 and the 2021 mean average for the ODQ. In this survey, there are about 111 respondents. This actually indicates that the company has not regressed during pandemic. It in fact even improved in terms of its organizational alignment. We were curious to know whether this is a common finding between the supervisorial and the non-supervisorial positions. And we can see in this result that there's obviously a lower mean on the supervisorial mean ratings as compared to the non-supervisorial, which is again another good finding because it means that the upper management has a good alignment with the middle management, because the middle management therefore can influence the non-supervisorial functions to be aligned during the time of pandemic and even post-pandemic period. Now let's look at the organizational culture assessment instrument of the company. According to Quinn and Cameron, the organizational culture of a company can be described as clan culture, ad hoc culture, market culture, or hierarchical culture, as we have described earlier on. Now, looking at the comparison of the means, this time it is very interesting to note that in 2019, the culture of Diagnostica was more on clan. They are more on family orientation and being closely knit together because it got the highest mean average in 2019. The second highest was only market culture at 19.91. But in 2021, it's very interesting to take note that the features of the clan culture, the ad hoc culture, and the market culture melded together, making the organizational culture of the company now as a hybrid clan, ad hoc, and market culture. And the basis of saying that is that the p-values of all the means are all significantly different between the pre-pandemic and the post-pandemic. That now brings us into another finding in this paper of what we call the meta-analysis of combining the mean differences of the OKI and the ODQ. The comparative scores of the OKI between the pre- and post-pandemic showed evidence of change in organizational culture from a predominantly family or clan-oriented culture to a hybrid of clan, ad hoc, and market culture. The Organizational Diagnosis Questionnaire scores showed an improvement in all of the means of the 7 boxes, with purposes, leadership, and relationship having the highest means, that is closer to 1, and it corroborated with the organizational culture. This is in spite of the finding that there was no significant difference between the means of 2019 and 2021 ODQ mean scores. And therefore, the meta-analysis is seen in the complementarity of the ODQ and OKI scores. When people understand why they exist as an organization, and that's the purpose, they have strong individual and departmental collaboration and coordination, that's from relationship box, and are led effectively at the organizational helm, it's leadership, culture change in an organization could be facilitated and sustained. The conclusion, therefore, from this paper is that the means of pre- and post-pandemic organizational alignment through the ODQ questionnaire showed that there was no significant difference in the means, but there was an improvement in the means of the 7 boxes variable comparison from 2019 to 2021, except, of course, the reward box, which remained to be the same. But for the organizational culture, there was a significant difference in the means from 2019 to 2021, showing that the culture has shifted from being a predominantly clan or family-oriented firm into a hybrid of clan, ad hoc, and market culture. Thank you for joining me in this session, and I hope that you enjoyed the presentation of this paper. God bless you all.